So what do we do? Well, Alaska Center ICE is the Center for Innovation, Commercialization, and Entrepreneurship. And basically, in a nutshell, we provide startup funding, support, and experiences for hopefully all of you guys out there who are engaged in this call one way or another. And today, you've probably been drawn here because of a program called Students2Startups. And some of you might have been drawn here because of a program called Innovators Fast Track. So I just wanted to let everybody know so there wasn't any confusion and people were kind of getting a bit confused with these terms. The Innovators Fast Track is kind of a sub-program that we're trying to build into Students2Startups. You're in the right place. It isn't a separate program. It is all kind of lining into this. But the big macro arm of this is definitely the Students2Startups brand. Students2Startups was started last year. It's received funding through Center ICE and a number of other key donors that have really sort of made the program possible. And we've had funding to sort of like, help grow this intern program over the period. So why are we all here? And this is where this stuff gets really important. Does anyone know why we're here? Zach, why do you think we're here?
Why do I think we're here?
Yeah.
Because you don't like to let me have my Saturday morning in peace.
Oh, I vote student internships.
Okay. So something between trying to destroy Zach's Saturday morning and student internships is precisely why we are here. But actually, it's a bit more serious than that. And I think you guys have realize what's going on. Right outside right now, as you guys see this isn't a queue of people waiting to get into a hospital right now. It's a queue of people, waiting to get unemployment applications. And it's pretty scary out there. I don't want to deny it. And I don't like to sugarcoat things, especially for Zach. We're out there, and in just the last 3 weeks alone, we now have close to 17 million people that have just been made unemployed. This is unprecedented in the history of the country. And we are here because fundamentally getting people into work and creating jobs is absolutely critical. So you guys are looking at this as student internships and maybe some jobs for yourselves. I actually don't care that much about your jobs and you guys getting to work. I care more about the fact that you are hopefully going to get mobilized to go work with other organizations to help them create some jobs. Because working with startups, you have one incredible power and opportunity, and that is that startups and scale-up companies are responsible for almost all the net job growth in the economy. And I wanted to zoom into that a little bit with you guys and understand a bit of what that means. So when we think of really large companies that employ, let's say 100,000 people, well, what happens is they might increase their production line a little bit one week or decrease it like they are right now. And what happens is they generally sort of float around a certain size, but they're actually generally not sort of on an endless growth trajectory. They kind of have a fairly static, number of folks that work with them. And then really small companies, so let's say like the pizza shops and the restaurants and so on and so forth, well, they're actually kind of capped as well at how many people they employ. They employ 10, 15 people maybe. They don't really keep scaling up as they're not really growing. And then of course, for every pizza shop that goes out of business, another one pops up and replaces it. And therefore they actually don't create any new jobs. So all of the job growth that really happens in our macro economy comes from these new enterprises, these new startup companies that are hopefully on a growth trajectory that allows them to sort of scale up, is what we call it. And usually a sort of sudden move towards, taking their first, few people on to the first couple of hundred people. And it's that delta, that growth factor in the first few companies of new organizations that is critical for net job growth in both Alaska and the nation as a whole. And right now, that's going to be more important than maybe ever before in the history of the US. And it's time for us to step up and really support those entrepreneurs and those folks who are wired that way, including some of you, in going forth and actually working towards recreation of some of those jobs that have been lost. And don't doubt it for a second that some businesses are going to have doors closed, even when we get through this the immediate sort of shutdown. I have no doubt you're going to be going around and seeing businesses for sale signs up and around. So it is a huge opportunity and also a huge public service need right now to have folks plug in and work with the entrepreneurs, because for whatever you're doing right now to support the COVID-19 crisis, which for a lot of us is just staying at home and trying to stop the spread and stay socially distanced, the next work that we all have to do as a nation is to step forward and help one another in rebuilding valuable work and for one another. So I didn't want to downplay what this program is about. I'm looking for students who are going to be engaged in the program to work with companies and startups that desperately need some support of help right now to hopefully grow their businesses in this changing time and changing economy. So it's a really frantic and interesting time. And during that time, hopefully create some jobs at the other end of it, including obviously you guys getting paid for the summer through the program. So
what exactly can we do to help these companies as students or student employees or interns or however we look at it?
So that's a great question. I think, honestly, Joseph, how you can help is primarily that I find that if you empower entrepreneurs kind of know how to solve problems that are really this way. They actually operate best when the situation is, pretty ambiguous. They operate really well when things are changing really rapidly. Entrepreneurs find they find the opportunity. They're actually wired that way. And therefore, there is a number of startups we already have in the state, hundreds of them for a fact, that they're actively going out there searching for things. But what they need is they need more people to help them grow, get the message out and do whatever. So often students fall into various kind of like focus roles within the startup. And these focus roles are kind of what I show on the slide here. Usually we're looking for students to engage with them on the business and finance side. Maybe they need some help there. Or on the communication side of their business and like helping them market and push some information out. Or there's actually some engineering, some product development that needs to be done. Or there's some research, market research, changing things that are happening that gives them new opportunities and obviously designers to make everything prettier and more engaging for the public that's out there. So that's the common roles, and there's a bunch of stuff in between all of that. So if you guys do have questions, I'm going to really encourage you to throw some questions in the group chat as well as we're going along. So you don't lose your question. Please feel free to throw it in the group chat, and I'll try and get to them as Zach will call them out as we have them come along. I don't want to miss out on any questions as we're going through this. So why, when we think about startups, and this is a really oversimplified sentence here, but it's one that has a lot of power. I want you guys to realize when I'm talking about startups, I'm not talking about small businesses and companies that fall in the traditional sense. Startups are a different kind of animal. So companies, they at least normally operate, they already have an established business model and they already know what they're doing from day to day, and they just carry on operating and managing that business model. That's why the people who run companies are called CEOs. They're the chief executive officer. They execute on the companies, and their job is execution of the business model. It's very different from startups. Startups are run by founders, and founders, their entire job is to go out there and they're in a mode of searching. They're searching to figure out what their business model is. They haven't quite figured it out. And what's happening right now, and this is a unique moment in history, we're having companies across the nation and across Alaska going back into startup mode. And they're having to reimagine themselves again because the game just changed on them overnight. And that means that all of these companies, some of them have been in startup mode very recently and they kind of know that. Other companies, this has been a long time since they've had to go back to this kind of step and stage. They're having to try and reimagine themselves and refigure out. So they're going back into search mode. They're trying to search for who are their new customers in the market. And I want to give you guys some examples. So I'm going to call him Ryan because I know he's here. Ryan works actively in the food industry and the food production kind of space. And Ryan, if you could take a minute, just tell me about some of the changes you see there and some of the innovation opportunities that are happening as you guys go from basically being a nonprofit company back into startup mode.
Yeah, the entire food system is just sort of on its head right now. The distributor that we work with to get product out into the community and our main way to serve restaurants has had to completely reshape their business model, because restaurants drastically over the course of a week to 2 weeks saw a huge reduction in the orders that they're placing because they had a huge reduction in the number of customers who were placing orders. And so our distributor had to switch to doing direct to consumer models and figure out how to do that over the course of a week and then get that geared up. And that meant that we had to shift how we were packaging our product and how we were harvesting it and getting it out into the community. And that's not just us. That is every single farmer, every single food distributor, every single restaurant who is trying to rapidly figure out how they can still serve the community and keep their doors open in a way that makes sense. And some are figuring it out and some aren't. And you know, it's going to be an exciting but challenging time.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. And I think, you know, sort of really feeding off that, you can imagine that that's just one sector that is happening right now. We've got companies across Alaska, you know, that have been companies for years and years, have run tourism businesses, and now cruise ships are not showing up, and their tourists and the people they serve are not being there. The customers have changed, again, overnight, and they're having to go back into startup mode and reinvent themselves. And again, not every single business is going to make it out there, but the more businesses that we can rally towards and support, and use these skills that hopefully we can leverage from Center Ice and bring it out into that market, the quicker we can help some of those businesses refine themselves and activate. So there are really 3 options for this program. And I mean, I've talked about the second one quite extensively right now, which is kind of a business that's going through a pivot, right? So they're an established company that's pivoting, and they're really having to go back into startup mode. But there's also some startups that were around, you know, just a little bit before this, and we had startups that, you know, are also like dealing with this macroeconomic change. And for some of them, that hasn't necessarily directly affected their original plans, but it's really put a damper in their progress. So, you know, anything we can do to sort of like, you know, re-energize and put some effort into those startups is hugely valuable. And the third option is, and this was initially announced for this program this year, is we're also willing to pay some students to work on their own startup ideas. And I know that I've already had a couple of students speak to me about this program. I'm going to be honest with you guys and let you know that I'm really hesitant at trying to encourage folks to go start a brand new startup right now in the current in the current economy. But that doesn't mean to say that I'm not open to it. So if there's a startup that's really trying to solve a problem that's, you know, COVID-19 related, for example, and they see some new business opportunities that have come out of it, I could see that working. And therefore, you know, really on a case-by-case basis, we could do that. But for the most part, you know, what I'd love to do this year with the cohort is expand the number of positions we have and have more people, have a whole activated cohort of us working together to go out there and work with a whole series of businesses across the state and either try and prop them back up by helping them learn some of the startup skills. And again, remember, a lot of the business owners out there, especially established businesses, are really rusty at these skills. They haven't even, some of these guys haven't done this stuff for 20 or 30 years. They don't even know what the latest and greatest information is. So the opportunity for you guys to get trained in the latest and greatest business methodologies and startup principles, and then hopefully take that over and use that to apply that to these businesses across Alaska is really interesting. As well as, you know, there's a huge need for it. And we have, you know, some startups on the line today who are looking for exactly that type of support. So I'm going to run through some of the program highlights for you guys. And this is what I imagine we're going to be doing during the time. Because a lot of folks are really worried, like, well, what am I going to be doing if I join this program, and what's it going to feel and look like? So running down the list, we've obviously got, you know, facilitated ideation is the first thing on the list there. And what that really means is you're going to learn some tools and skill sets in using design thinking inspired methodologies to do brainstorming and that type of stuff. And that's really important because at a moment when, again, businesses are trying to find themselves or startups getting established, ideation is everything, and figuring out and looking at new ideas in conference is great. Again, we're seeing businesses that, you know, have been trying to, you know, work in various industries for years and years and never really made any progress. Overnight, suddenly, you know, getting, you know, incredible traction. So, you know, like the home food delivery businesses, for example. I mean, for years and years, people have been trying to push out that idea and concept. And now that it's actually more than just a public service, it's actually like a public health crisis where, you know, there are a number of folks who are literally scared, you know, older folks who are scared to go to the grocery stores and they need that service desperately. And yet, you know, they may not be fully comfortable using the mobile phones. You know, the idea generation comes from how do we make the smartphone easy to use for a certain generation to have access to this critical service at this time of need. So those are the kind of things that are getting talked about during facilitated ideation. A big part of this is because a lot of us for the summer are still going to be pretty socially distanced. I don't imagine that's going to change anytime too soon. But I think getting together, right? So having regular 11s with Peter and other folks, you know, on a you know, hopefully with your teams, you know, and with your companies, you're engaging with them on a daily basis. With our largest sort of cohort we're going to have, I'm hoping we'll be engaging on maybe a weekly basis or even twice a week basis where we'll be getting together. And we'll also try and divide people into some smaller groups, because depending on the number of folks we hire this year, we might break things into smaller teams as well. So, that interaction is really, really key, and I want to have that shared interaction between teams. The third thing here is, of course, entrepreneurial mentors. So beyond listening to me and making me waste your Saturdays and other days during the week, you're going to have some really great folks like, Mark Billingsley's on the call, and Peter and Kai Holland and other folks who really have been there and done that with some of this entrepreneurial stuff. And they can, just be a wealth of resources and access to resources that are available, because every single startup that you guys either work for or with is going to have different challenges, and they're all going to be hopefully feeding those challenges back to you. And we're hoping to maybe congregate those challenges onto some sort of platform. And I know Kai has been working on an idea for a switchboard, but my hope is that if we can have enough students placed in enough startups across Alaska, you guys will actually be hearing from the startup owners and the founders, or you'll be starting the company, what are the needs right now, and posting that back. And also, what can you guys provide? Some of these startups could help one another and create more of a community of internet. So kind of we have our own internal community out there with a bunch of fingers in different startups, drawing back that information and helping drive guidance and policy right now. Because I guarantee you, I know this, that even just last week, the governor's office is looking to get guidance on how to help the startup community. And it's, the insights that you guys can go out and gather that's going to be a huge driver to that. So third on that list is customer discovery. Customers have just changed. I mean, customers that people have known for a long, long time have just changed overnight. Customers don't look quite the same way anymore, don't quite behave the same way anymore. So reimagining, so redefining what a customer is and does and how they operate in this current, economy is going to be really relevant to this. And as part of that, we do have some funds for travel. I don't think it's likely that we're going to be able to use those funds for obvious reasons right now, but there are some funds that are available for that. And depending on how things, open up over the summertime, if they open up over the summertime, we'll see that. So again, overall, this program is intended to be primarily a virtually engaged program, and we're looking for startups that have experience working with folks virtually. So I do want you guys to be mindful and aware of that I can't guarantee anyone like physical placements. My first and highest priority for everyone is the health and safety of everyone involved. So in addition to that, business model development. Don't want to go into a lot of detail there, just, that's a real core to what startups need. They need to really be driving and developing their business models and looking at the markets and channel analysis. And we've got people on the call. I see Meredith is logged on. People who are just supremely talented in our startup community at going out there and identifying, market opportunities and learning how to really maximize the channels and the funnels and grow and do, growth hacking and growth marketing. So hopefully, as we have a bit of a cohort and students plugged into that, we can share knowledge and resources from different founders and again, bring that stuff together. For some of the startups that aren't quite off into full activity yet, there's going to be some launch strategy stuff. So teaching you guys about some of the funding and other resources that are available to help those companies really get off the ground. And in the current climate, I'm telling you that I would fully expect there's going to be a lot of economic stimulus money floating down, from the heavens, be it the federal government or elsewhere, to really help start propping companies back into action again. And therefore, we're going to be trying to keep tabs on that stuff and passing that out amongst you guys, so you guys can be spreading that information across the community. Prototype development and planning, that's a big part of startup world. Obviously, if you're switching, you're having to make a new product or a new service, prototyping is the first thing you have to do. So that's going to be probably a lot of the hands-on activity some of you guys will be engaged with. And last but not least, and I know those folks that were involved in the program last year, learning how to pitch the company and the product you work on is a huge deal. And it's really funny to see that, again, like established businesses that have been around for 30 years really struggle with this. They don't actually know how to pitch themselves because, again, they're having to reinvent that. And it's a lot of work involved in just learning how to very quickly re-identify what you do. So imagine a company in Alaska that's doing, in-person conference, meeting room bookings, across Alaska. Well, suddenly their business just has dried up overnight. And maybe they're going to try and move everything onto a virtual platform. But again, trying to find the right way of framing that and phrasing that and giving people the sense of experience, that's a big part of the pitch. And I mean, I just wanted to, instead of just hearing from me what the program highlights are going to be, I wanted to pick on maybe somebody from last year. I know we got a whole bunch of people on the call that were involved last year, but Angie, if you're there, I see you on there somewhere. And if you could just tune in and maybe just tell people some of the highlights for you last year, and why you went through the program, and anything you took away from it in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Nigel. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sound good.
I have been a big supporter of a proponent for climate change activism, and it was very neat for me to get an experience with a solar startup based in California. So I was the only virtual intern last year, but hello, welcome to the virtual world. Now everyone's going to be virtual, but I had a very productive experience where I worked with rural Alaskan communities, and we got total of 1.5 million grant for 2 community projects. And I also participated in the NSF I-Corp market discovery program, and I learned a lot about commercializing an idea, because if your business idea may have a very good social value or very attracting value, but if it doesn't have any commercial value, it's just useless. So there's a lot to say about putting a commercial value and all the things that Nigel just talked about. And I went down to visit Box Power in Northern California for a week. So it was despite not working with the startup company or being around the interns and other people, it was still a very neat experience, and I learned a lot through the program. So I highly encourage it for other students and startups. This was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. You were a total rock star last year. I know that the startup was also hugely appreciative of what you added to their group and the insights that you brought to the work they did. So a couple of quick details, guys. This is some of the boring detailed stuff. Just before we go through this, I know we had a poll that we wanted to run out, and maybe while you guys are sitting there on the computer, if you have a chance to fit it in, that would be great. Zach, I don't know if you can just make that live.
Yep, I went ahead and launched the poll here. And I just wanted to, before you move on real quick, Nigel, a couple of people, Meredith Noble, Eric Talvey, Whitaker, and EINC, and Adam, Joshua McEckard, and Taran. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. If you guys wouldn't mind just renaming yourselves so that we have your organization or startup name and then your full name, so that we know who we're talking to. Yeah,
thanks, Zach. And guys, again, feel free to put questions into the group chat as you sort of go forward. All right, I see that we've got a few of you guys filling in the poll. We'll give it another second or two just to get some information back. Trying to have some fun with this, guys, because I've got to get through my tea and my biscuits. So. For those of you who are just calling in and not able to see the poll, the questions are, hopefully to try to see if you're able to engage with startups potentially next Saturday. We have a number of startups who are already eager and willing to maybe engage with some students. So I'm hoping to host either an event next Saturday, and if not, we're going to have some emails go around about trying to find some other times as well that could work. We've got to try and mix people together, and everyone's virtual right now, so we're just going to try and make it work the best we can. I'm totally aware that everyone during the week right now has classes and other things that are all on weird schedules, so I'm just trying to do that. Cool. There's not too many people suffocating on Zoom, so yeah, I like that. I'm just looking at the results here. I guess we can share the results in a second, Zach, once get a few more of them in. So, all right. Well, moving forward, and we'll let the poll run for a second or two. Oh no, I'm gonna go through the slide, right? So a couple of quick details of the program. This is really for the participants of the program, not for the startups. So for the participants of the program, it's open to undergrads and grads, and it's going to be open for the summer only right now. And we don't know if we'll extend out some of the positions through the fall, although there is always some opportunities for that. But right now, we are definitely looking to have folks join us for the summer. For the startups you'll be engaging with that are external to the university, they'll be signing letters of affiliation with the university. What that basically means is that the position is you work for the university, either UAA, UAF, UAS, but you'll be working as a university student employee for the time, and therefore you're protected by the university's kind of general non-discrimination and protection pieces. We're an equal opportunity employer and that stuff. So be really mindful of that, and that's obviously a huge benefit to you guys. If there is any problems during your internship in any way whatsoever, we make sure that we deal with that stuff really severely and strictly. And again, most of the startups that are being chosen for this and engaged with this are going through a process of having spoke to me up front and making sure that they're ready and willing and understand what they're taking on as well. And again, it's a hard time, so things are going to change. As far as like, what we pay, people ask that question a lot, so I'm trying to get ahead of that curve. We're kind of stuck with what the university's recommended student rates are. So it varies, but it sits around the sort of range I've shown there between $10.50 and $15.25 an hour. There isn't a lot of wiggle room, sadly. So I'm letting you guys know, I know that isn't great for some of you, but for those of you who see this opportunity of both getting the experience, being part of the startup, and could do that, would love to have you on board. At least getting paid something right now in this current economy is better than a lot of people are in. So I also want to encourage you to be mindful of the fact that, this is a program that we wish we could afford to the open public as well, but we can't. So it is for students, and it is a benefit you guys get for being part of the university. The interns will have access to the centralized space once that becomes available and public accessible again. And I'll talk a bit about that in a second. And then the term of the internship is ready for the summer semester, so that are ready. And most importantly, no one's getting hired as of right now today. The hiring process still has to go through a university hiring process, which is a bit more formal than this. What we are doing today is trying to get expressions of interest and and capture you guys on that. So what we'll be doing next after I'm done talking here is we'll be posting out a application form in this chat. And really, to me, if you show up, that's how you get, move forward in life. So those of you who have shown up, please hang on to the end, and we'll post out the application form. We'll encourage you guys to fill it in. Some of you may have already seen this application form before. A few of the questions have been changed, so I'm going to encourage everyone to just fill it in again. We'll hopefully have that application form open really through the weekend and closing it off early next week. So we're looking for people to apply there. That'll give us a bulk of context to engage with for you if you're interested, and then move on. And if you come through this presentation, you're like, yeah, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, not interested, shoot us an email as well, and we're always happy to take the feedback and learn a bit more about what it is that you were hoping for. So moving on. There's a whole bunch of continued opportunities coming out of Students to Startups. And I know that a number of the students that previously went through the program last year took advantage of these. So Angie mentioned that. She mentioned one of the programs, which was the ICOR program that she was able to go through and take advantage of to utilize some funding and travel funding. In addition to that, we have things like the Centralized Seed Fund, which right now also has an open call for immediate innovations related to COVID projects. And I think they might still squeeze in one or two more applications into that. I know the deadline was yesterday, I think, on that. But there's award money for folks who are both UA and non-UA startups to some extent to engage with the university. And therefore, these programs will be made available to you both through your positions at these startups, but also if you finish the journey through the summer, you're like, oh, I actually really want to go do this thing now, or I'm really inspired by this. There are a bunch of other opportunities there. Cool. Thanks for sharing out the poll, Zach. So let's go through this. Should be fun. All right. So most people can come to the meeting on Saturday. Those who can't don't get jobs, I guess. And then number two, how comfortable are you from working from home? All right, cool. So we just don't hire the introverts and we get everybody else that's struggling with this, the people that are suffocating. Oh well, breathe deep. And the ideal outcome from the internship. Wow, there's actually interest in entrepreneurship. Wow, you guys are lying. That's cool. Okay. So it clearly was the third option there. One person said they needed some cash money instead of McDonald's jobs. All right, fine. All right, so what else am I going to show you? Oh yeah, and then in addition to that, we kind of have a membership, group around Center Ice. This is open to actually everyone beyond Center Ice as well. So this is not just a UA thing. We have community memberships, memberships of people that actually are tenants in the space that actively use the space, and we have some of those folks on the call now who are regularly position at Center Ice, and they use some of the offices there, as well as student memberships, and that's relevant to a lot of you. So as part of applying for this program and filling in the application form at the end of this, all of you will now be, at least broadly classified that once you've actually gone through the process of applying for an internship with us, even if you're not awarded an internship, you will all have the benefit, once it's available again, to have access to the Center Ice space and be part of the Innovation Guild, is what we call it. And being part of the Innovation Guild, you get to hear about some of the coolest and latest opportunities around entrepreneurship and innovation that's happening across the university and across the state. So I'll give you guys some pictures of the space, and then I'm going to be done. This is the space we have up at UAF. It's on the 4th floor of the ELIF building. So it's a new engineering, learning, innovation facility. And we have a space up there on the 4th floor. For some of you who are like, well, I don't live in Fairbanks, I'm far away. Well, cool. Next time you visit, you'll have a membership to a space you can work out of. And then, as we go forward, there's an opportunity that Center Ice may actually end up opening up spaces at the other campuses across the state. We're still in these sort of early stages of trying to negotiate some of that out. But you're going to be part of other clubs and groups, and we have good partnerships with groups like the Upstart Alpha Accelerator and other groups across the state you can plug into. So just being part of that crowd is going to be cool. Kind of a lounge area, a bunch of books. I know Eric's on the call, and he managed to put some of those on the shelves, and I know that it's quite a lot more than that since I took this photo. We have kind of an open innovation lab space as well. We do a lot of stuff on walls and whiteboarding and Post-its. Of course, for the summertime, for this program, we aren't going to be probably meeting in person, so we're going to be trying to use some of these tools online and trying to find some cool virtual tools to do this stuff. So I'm working on all of that right now. We do have some private offices up there as well and some areas to work out of. So it can be really cool to have a space to drop into and be able to sort of work on either your startup or somebody else's startup idea in a quiet space, as well as kind of our open innovation dry lab. So this is actually a fully fitted dry lab as well. So you can actually do some prototyping in there, as well as we do a lot of low fidelity stuff with Post-it notes and Google Jamboards and other fun toys as well. So if you haven't seen the website already, do check out alaska.edu/Center Ice. There is more resources and other pieces on there. If this is the first time you're getting exposed to our community and group, do go check out some of the other programs and things that are on there. But today we're really focusing and honing in on Students to Startups. So I'm going to encourage, if there's any questions, to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to call the meeting closed pretty soon. So if you have a question, Zach, has there been any questions that I didn't catch? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted. There we go. Let's try that again. So Sarah, I'm not sure I quite understand your question, but do you want to go ahead and just unmute yourself and ask it yourself?